new world currency.
The New World Order.
Those are the roots of trouble.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition. It is the Sunday edition, December 16th, 2012. 2 days after the school shooting in Colorado, Connecticut. Listen to me, Colorado. There's so many of them. It's hard to keep track. Which, interesting, by the way, is one of the points I'm going to cover tonight. President Obama did his weekly address to the nation, and in it, of course, he says we're going to have to take meaningful action, put politics aside. And we've heard that before. Who knows? Could be that they're going to... I personally think they're going to use this because of the children to push for tighter gun control. And, of course, Feinstein is coming out saying, yep, I'm going to put an assault weapons ban out there because it's the assault weapons' fault that those children and those people died. Because the gun woke up that morning and said, we're going to kill everybody. Well, we're going to go over a bunch of this stuff. But it's interesting that during this weekly address that Obama gave, he said, we've had too many of these shootings in the past few years. We have to do something about it. We've had too many shootings in the past few years, huh? It's amazing. They've all happened under your presidency, except for Virginia Tech. So even if you go back 8 years to 2004 under the Bush administration, Virginia Tech happened under the Bush administration. Okay. So aside from Virginia Tech, anything that's happened from 2008 on up, or since the Obama administration on up, that's what he was referring to. We've had too many of these in the past few years. Yeah, interestingly enough, they've all been under your watch, sir. Anyone find that suspicious? I do. I find it highly suspicious. Now, again, on Friday I said that I wasn't going to come out and say that this was a government-controlled op. There's still, there are a lot of weird ends to it, a lot of weird things that don't make sense and that do need to be addressed. Again, I still don't have proof positive, 100%, that it's a government-controlled psyop. But there's a lot of things that need to be explained away. And it's kind of the explanations that are being given and the things that are being said are kind of flimsy. There was a lot of stuff, a lot of talk about a lot of information going around about a second shooter. And actually, I was one of the people talking about the fact that, there's a second shooter, but actually a little bit of digging by a young lady named on YouTube who goes by the name of Sheila Aliens. She puts out a lot of good videos, and she put out a video today explaining the second shooter, or at least the guy that was arrested in the woods anyway. And there had been reports yesterday that had come out that people had seen a guy handcuffed, wearing camo pants and a black jacket, and that he was taken out of the woods. And then if you had listened to the police radio calls, you'll hear them say that they have a guy in custody. Well, Sheila did that, and she went a little bit further and listened to the entire radio communications, right? And in there you hear the guy's name that they had arrested in the woods. They say his name over the radio. So she looked him up in connection with the school's name, the school that the shooting took place at. And she found out that the guy, it turns out his name was mentioned, I think it was an LA Times article or something out of the West Coast. And it mentioned the guy's name, and it said who he was. He was picked up, he was detained by police, but it turns out he was a father. And he was running around the school trying to figure out where his daughter was, because he had found out that there was a shooting at the school, and he was trying to pick his kid up, and he was freaking out trying to find his kid. They cleared him, and he is not a shooter. So one of the misconceptions that there was a second shooter on the scene, and everybody's pointing to the evidence. Well, I believe that there was a second shooter on the scene too, but with a little bit of due diligence, Sheila has proved that who the second shooter, or the person that was thought to be the second shooter, actually was. There was initial reports I know were confusing, where people had thought maybe the brother was at the school and arrested with him, and he was the second shooter. The way it came across, that's what I thought too originally. But from what I've seen, and I'm not trying to say that there's no conspiracy or anything like that, I'm just trying to put out the evidence factually. And from doing a little research and a little bit of digging, the guy that was arrested in the woods there is not a second shooter. He's not even a person of interest in the case anymore, because he was a father there trying to get his kid, and he just wasn't sure where his kid was. After the police cleared him, within a little while, he went and picked up his child, and they moved on from there. So that's at least one piece that's been put to rest. And I'm not saying that puts everything to rest. I'm going to bring up some stuff that's, it needs to be answered. There's questions that need to be answered. There's statements being made that just are outright idiotic by people like the governor of Connecticut. Made a comment. I'm gonna play the audio. It's stupid, irresponsible to say things like he did. And what he said was they were talking about how the guy got into the school. And he says there's no way in hell that he was buzzed in, and that the guy used an assault weapon to shoot a hole through an entranceway into the school. Even though it came out and they said he was buzzed in. Nope, now that story has changed, and now it's he wasn't buzzed in. He shot himself into the school. So he took the quote-unquote assault weapon. Wah! Scary words, right? Took the assault weapon, a rifle, and according to them, shot a hole through the wall, as my cat yells in the background, shot a hole through the wall, okay, and climbed in. Now, if he shot out windows and climbed in through a broken window, that's one thing. But the way that, from what I've seen, they're portraying it that he blasted an entranceway through the wall into the school. Now, I know in movies, they take an assault rifle and they aim it at a wall, and they squeeze the trigger a couple times, and they can kick a hole, this man-shaped hole or man-sized hole in, and the wall falls in, and they come busting through the wall, and they kill everybody in the room, and they do so magically with one 45-round magazine. Well, it doesn't happen that way. That kid would have had to have had drum magazines on that weapon to be putting enough rounds through a wall to create a man-sized hole. by that time, they could have gotten all the kids, to some far end of the school. So according to the story, he wasn't buzzed in, and I'll play that audio clip. And then I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna play the audio. In fact, I'm gonna find the audio clip I had on Friday where it said he was buzzed in, right? And I'm gonna play that for you. And then I'll play them saying, no, he wasn't buzzed in. He shot his way through the school, into the, through the front entrance into the school, literally, physically, like you would see in a movie. Now that's something that's a little bit idiotic. And the reason that the idiotic statement that was made by him was, well, that's what these weapons can do. That's what these assault weapons can do. So if we don't ban assault weapons, people are going to shoot their way through walls and cause terror all over the country. We're going to break. We'll be right back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. It's been reported by the state police in Connecticut now that there's a lot of disinfo floating around the web about this shooting. Now, a lot of times I would be inclined to just jump on that statement right off the bat and be like, these cops are trying to cover something up. That would be normally what you would expect to hear from me. And I'm not saying that, again, there's not anything shady going on, but the state police are right. There's a lot of disinfo and misinfo floating around out there since Friday about this. And see, that is one of the dangers I have warned about in the past. The same thing happened with Hurricane Sandy. As soon as the storm was headed towards New York, a lot of people on social media, there was a lot of fake pictures being put out there, a lot of fake accounts being put out there of stories and things happening to people. And now you're seeing the same thing going on with this. You're seeing a lot of disinfo and misinfo, and a lot of intelligent people out there are spreading it because they don't believe anything the government says anymore. I mean, it's gotten to the point where the media and the government is so distrusted that anything that happens now, people are questioning whether or not it's real, whether or not the government had something to do with it, whether or not it was a staged event. Now, again, this very well could be a real event, and they are just using the outcome of it and the horrific scenes from it to push an agenda of gun control and to play on people's emotions, which they are, regardless of whether or not they staged it, they are doing that. Okay, so that is a definite that they are pushing this agenda. The aftermath, the past 2 days, you can see it. That is without a doubt. The shooting itself is very shady. There's a lot of shady things, but I can't still say definite that it's an MK Ultra type event, or and I use that term as an umbrella term in case people they don't. I wouldn't want to get into a particular thing and say mind controlled assassin, and people go, huh? They might have heard of MK Ultra. If you're not sure, MK Ultra, mind control. If I make reference to that in reference to this shooting, I'm just talking about the aspect of it, or the possibility of it being the kid being a mind controlled individual, and this being a staged event. But again, I don't know if that's true. I mean, 2 days of researching this, and there's things that raise red flags all over the place, and then there's things that I see a lot of misinfo and disinfo being put out there, and that sways people's opinion too. So when you have an event like this, you see a lot of disinformation floating around the interwebs, Facebook, Twitter, and you actually see a lot of websites running within a lot of this disinfo. One of the things this disinfo, which was the same disinfo garbage connected to James Holmes. Now people are trying to say that these two shooters are connected. See, people are starting to connect dots that aren't there, and that's not good, because then when you really do connect a real dot, okay, and you do some hard work, like people like Stephanie Sledge, right? She's investigated the Jared Lee Loughner shooting. You do an investigation like that woman's done into that shooting, huge, April Zebra 11. Go check her website out, thegovernmentrag.com, and she's got the report up there. But a real report like that gets diminished by fake information put out about shootings. Okay, so if somebody put out a ton of fake and erroneous information out about the Gabrielle Gifford shooting, if people go to look into it, there's just too much garbage out there, and they tune out and they go with the mainstream story because it's the easiest to accept. It's been prepackaged for them to accept, okay? We're the ones that have the burden of trying to prove this to other people, that the official story of whatever isn't the way it is, right? Or it isn't the way they say it is. And a lot of times the alternative media gets caught up in the same garbage that we make fun of the mainstream media for. You know, a lot of times people make fun of CNN or MSNBC because they literally get caught pulling a story from a Twitter feed and they run with it, and it comes back that what they were talking about was either unconfirmed or it comes back sometimes that it's not true. But they ran with it because they thought it was real, and it turns out they found it on Twitter or Facebook. And then the mainstream media gets bit by this, and so do we. And what I'm talking about in this case is the Lieber scandal. That's why I brought up the shooting about the Colorado shooting, because there were people saying that Holmes was connected to when I think it was his father was supposed to testify in the Lieber scandal, which that wasn't true. Okay, and then you look into this, they're saying, oh my God, you know, he's this kid's father was going to testify in the Lieber scandal too. Oh my God. Well, yeah, if that were true, that would be a huge connection between the two, right? It would be, I mean, that would be something you would and should investigate. That would be a big connection, but it's not. The person who's the source for this info is a disinfo, writer, pen name, whatever you want to call it, named Saoirse Fowl, who I've mentioned on air before. The EU Times, which Saoirse Fowl writes for, is largely disinfo. In fact, most of that crap is disinfo that's on that website. I would say almost all, probably all of it. And Saoirse Fowl isn't even a real person. Fake individual. Does not exist. It's actually a group of different people that write under that pen name. Always disinformation articles. Well, people are passing this stuff around. For the past 2 days, I've seen it now. Between yesterday and today, heavily. Oh my God, Popeye, did you see this? He's connected to the Lieber scandal. And there's some really well-intentioned people out there that are falling for it. And it's because nobody trusts the government anymore. I mean, the mainstream media and the government have lied so much that people are willing to believe, a story that maybe 5 or 6 years ago, nobody would have believed it because it would have sounded too crazy. Now that's the first thing that people pick up rather than even the official story. So there's a lot of disinfo floating around out there. Just like I said, just like with Superstorm Sandy, and of course I use the Superstorm because the pictures that were put out there were pictures, a lot of them were from the day after tomorrow, and I have my own thoughts about that, whether or not that was done as part of a psyop too, because these pictures would come out of nowhere and people would be passing them around like, oh my God, I just took the shot from the TV. Look, this is New York Harbor, and you see, the tidal wave wiping out the Statue of Liberty. And the reason I used Superstorm Sandy when I introduced that little segue there was because they keep using the term Superstorm Sandy instead of Hurricane Sandy. And the pictures they were showing were from the day after tomorrow, which conveniently the storm that hit New York and all up there in the Northeast and froze everybody and caused all the damage there was a quote-unquote superstorm. So you can see how the manipulation is there to twist you and play with your head. Now, in this case, I don't know if there's that manipulation going on with the school shooting. Okay, there seems to be, because there is stories changing and stuff here and there. But again, any of like when it comes to the second shooters, I would have been inclined to believe that there would have been a second shooter, without a doubt. A lot of these events, there was reported a second shooter by witnesses. And this time when you heard people hear the person getting arrested in the woods, they go automatically, oh, there must be a second shooter. There's got to be a second shooter. I did. Okay, I automatically thought that. But upon further investigation, as I said, you come to find out that the person that they arrested in the woods was just somebody's father that was looking for their kid. So there is a bunch of disinfo, misinfo floating around out there. So just take some time, get a cup of coffee, sit back, do the research. I'm not saying if something comes across your desk, don't look into it. Look into it, but we're the true skeptics. Remember that. Let's not just jump on everything and run with it. Let's try to be a little more skeptical. All right, we're going to break. We'll be right back in a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. They're saying that, from what I can see right now, and I mean, this could change, the story changes, but they're saying that he used 30-round magazines. So no Betamags. So you want me to believe that he shot a hole through a wall with a 30-round magazine? Did he go through like 15 or 20 of them before he got into the school? And at that point, then who's really criminally negligent? Why didn't somebody just go out and, if he's focused on shooting a hole through the wall, why didn't somebody sneak out and get their car and ram the guy into the wall? I mean, the whole thing's asinine and insane that he shot his way through. I don't think that's the case. Now, again, if he shot out a window and climbed in through a window, I guess that's one thing. But then while he was climbing in, somebody could have at least tried to grab the gun from him, because it's pretty hard to shoot while you're climbing through a window, unless you're like a trained Navy SEAL or Special Forces. I wouldn't expect a young kid like that, unless he's had some sort of military training, to be able to shoot coming through a window. So, I mean, somebody could have stopped him if he's coming through a window. The initial report said he was buzzed in. And I'm going to play the audio from that, and I'll get into that. But 30-round magazines, and he shot his way through a wall. See, again, there are things that, again, are very seriously shady. There are things that need to be investigated, claims that are just, by the mainstream media or by the I guess the people investigating it, saying certain things wherever stories change. There are things that kind of evoke a red flag, but there are certain things about this that are not true, and I want to make sure that you have to cover that kind of stuff too. If we're going to be responsible about this, right, and responsible about talking about this incident, then we have to be willing to admit that there is some misinformation or disinformation out there, and it needs to be covered. And it needs to be discussed, so that way the people that listen can try to make some sense of this, because there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of stuff coming at you, and it's not easy to try to make sense of all this. Really quick, I want to play the audio I did promise you of the sheriff, or he's a lieutenant, sheriff, listen to me, state police. He's a lieutenant with the state police, and he was given a press conference. This is from this afternoon. Almost noon. It was from 11:48 Connecticut time. When this press conference was done, maybe 5 hours ago, 6 hours ago, and they're talking about he's talking about the misinformation stuff, and it's a little more long-winded, but I want to play this one little tidbit for you, so you can see that there actually is a bunch of disinfo floating around out there, and then we'll move on to a few other things, because I want to cover a few other issues, like the shooting through the wall scenario.
Concern, and that is misinformation that's being posted on social media sites. There has been misinformation coming from people posing as the shooter in this case, posing using other IDs, mimicking this crime and crime scene and criminal activity that took place in this community. There's been some things in somewhat of a threatening manner. It is important to know that we have discussed with federal authorities that these issues are crimes. They will be investigated statewide and federally.
And they're going to prosecute whoever they said. And he gets into it. And I don't think they're talking about like the people putting up the stuff about Sorcia Fowl or whatever. Apparently, there is people pretending to be the shooter or whatever. And of course, you're going to have that. You're going to have some idiot that has no taste and doesn't care, doesn't think about any of the ramifications of their actions, and they'll go out and they'll make a fake, Facebook account or Twitter account. It's not like they can't make one, right? Speaking of fake accounts, that brings up something else. Now, I don't know if anybody's torn this apart any deeper than this, but there's a memorial page for one of the teachers that got killed, and I don't remember her name. I'm not even going to go bother looking it up because I don't want to, disparage the young girl's name. Apparently, she did do. She put herself in between the gunman and the her students, which cost her life. So I don't want to take anything away from her, but there's a memorial page for her up on Facebook, and somebody pointed out that, hey, this thing was made on the 10th of December, 4 days before the shooting happened. How is there a memorial page for this girl 4 days before the shooting happened? Well, it could have been, and I'm not saying it probably, I don't want to, so I stopped myself. I wanted to reword that. In a situation like that, the first thing that I would look at when I see something like that, I would say, well, if it was made like the day before or maybe 2 days before, okay, maybe they jumped the gun. But 4 days ahead of time, making it go live, doesn't, I mean, I know they screw up and they do when they, meaning the powers that shouldn't be, when they plan certain things. But I wouldn't look at that as any sort of evidence. Because I mean, I would look at it as something of interest, but I wouldn't take it as smoking gun evidence that this is a setup or a staged event, because that could have been a page for something else, that somebody who knew her when she died, or somebody that knew of her story, that heard of the story, felt moved to turn the page into a memorial page for her. So we can't jump to conclusions. People on Facebook, some people were jumping to conclusions. There were a few people that were smart, and they said, let's message the admins of the page and find out what the deal is. Now, I don't know. I haven't found out yet. I haven't heard any, if anybody's gotten any reply from the admins. The last time I spoke to somebody about it earlier this morning, they had told me that they hadn't received any message back from the admins yet, so I don't know what's going on with that. But again, it's 50% chance at least, right, that it was another page and they changed it as a memorial page for this girl after she died. So we don't want to jump to conclusions and say, oh, smoking gun evidence, see, it was made 4 days ahead of time. See, if you point to stuff like that and you jump on it right off the bat and you start screaming up and down and saying, see, MK Ultra, mind control, blah. If it really is, okay, that kind of a case of where the shooter is, there's a lot of shady things and it looks like it was a setup, like a lot of these other shootings have been, okay? Like the Colorado movie theater shooting, the Sikh temple shooting, all these weird, crazy shootings that just happen to occur around the time of gun control legislation, right? Now, they obviously look and have the feel of a staged event. This thing has a lot of signs of a staged event, but there's also a lot of signs saying that it might not be, and that it might be. It could be, the kid did go nuts. And I'm still on the fence about it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that says that there's shadiness going on behind the scenes, but when you start to point to misinformation or disinformation as your sources, and you run with it, when it gets when it gets proven later on that that's wrong, a lot of people use things like that as the basis for their whole argument. So then your whole argument is now refuted and destroyed. And now you have to start back at square one. And now all the people that you're going to be running around trying to, preach to are going to look at you and go, well, you were wrong the first time. You didn't know what you were talking about. Why should I listen to you? You've already taken away, you've already knocked out yourself. You've taken out your street cred already. It's no good. We have to be better than that. We have to not be so quick to jump on stuff and run with it. And, oh, my God, this guy's connected to this, and we're connecting dots that, you start connecting dots that aren't connected. Now, that's the real danger. And you've heard people make comments before, oh, conspiracy theorists, they connect dots that aren't there, blah, 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 blah. Well, in this case, you don't want to connect dots that aren't there. You don't want to say, yeah, this is definitely, the blah, 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 blah. It's hard enough what we have against us with fighting, the popular opinion, I guess, as it were, the mass populace, because kids are involved in this. It's different even when they're older teens or early 20s. People look at those type of deaths differently than they do 8 and 7 and 6-year-old kids, as I do. I mean, things with kids, they should bother anybody. Little, kids are innocent. But People look at that differently. So when people say to me, why shoot up a school filled with kids? Well, one must look at the motive. And in that case, shock value. Why would this guy want shock value? I mean, that's a question in itself we should ask. Lots of things, lots of aspects to this case, ladies and gentlemen. We need to take our time. This is a big one, so we need to take our time, focus on it, pay attention, and work through the details to get the truth out. All right, we're going to break. We'll be back in a few minutes. Do not go anywhere. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Final segment of the first hour, but have no fear. Hour number 2 is coming up. Joining me, hour number 2 is going to be Johnny English. If you don't know who Johnny is, he is a host here on the Orion Talk Radio Network. He does a show on Saturdays called Broken Man Radio, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Johnny will be joining me second hour to go over the craziness that is this school shooting. I want to get his opinion on a few things. So look forward and stay tuned for that. Okay, finishing up here in the final segment of the first hour. I was talking about Dianne Feinstein. Yes, that's right. Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein of California said that the president will soon have legislation to, quote, lead on, end quote, in the gun control debate, announcing she will introduce a bill next month in the Senate to replace a ban on assault weapons. We'll be prepared to go, and I hope the nation will really help, Feinstein said on NBC's Meet the Press. Of course, never let a good crisis go to waste. We're crafting this one. It's being done with care. It'll be ready on the first day, she said, adding that she'll soon announce the House authors. It will ban the sale, the transfer, the importation, and the possession of whatever they're going to ban. Not retroactively, but prospectively. So they're not going to go retroactive and take what's already out there, because that would be suicide for these people. But they're going to try to ban the sale of any more. So transfer, importation, and possession. So you won't be able to buy one and have the gun store transfer it to you. You won't be able to even possess it. So anybody that's already had it, you get grandfathered in. Anybody afterwards, you won't be able to go buy one anymore. And they won't even be able to import anything. Well, AR-15s are made here in the United States. Yeah, many guns aren't. What about Saigas? Many people out there know what a Saiga is. Saiga is a Russian company. It makes AK-47s. It makes shotguns based off the AK-47 frame, 12-gauge shotguns called the Saiga 12. Go look it up. All those, that'll be banned. That's imported. They come from Russia. Those aren't made here. Goodbye. You won't be able to get that. You won't be able to import that stuff anymore. What about Glocks? Where are Glock parts made? Anyone? What does it say in the side of your Glock? Made in Austria. You think you'll be able to have those parts? No. They're going to try to ban that too. It's a semi-automatic pistol. You don't need that. You should have a musket. And I know it's the 21st century and we can make cell phone calls all over the world for next to nothing, and you can upload a YouTube video from your cell phone or watch TV, and as George Carlin said, your cell phone makes pancakes, but you're not allowed to keep up with weapons technology because the criminals never get their hands on illegal weapons, right? They never get their hands on anything. Unbelievable. It's very frustrating because they're using, obviously they have an anti-gun agenda. They're using this tragedy, whether or not, again, it was staged. Even if you put that aside, the reaction to it, I mean, the bodies weren't even cold. Seriously. The bodies weren't even cold. Smoke wasn't even out of the barrels of the gun. And they're out there, we need gun control. Gun control. Popeye, you're heartless. Those children died and you don't care. Yeah, okay, right. I'm heartless. No, I'm being smart. I don't want to see more innocent children die. You want to see a good movie about gun control? Go watch Innocence Betrayed. Go watch it. Go look at what happens when you don't have weapons to protect yourself. The only people that need weapons are the state, the military, and the police. Really? Let's go find out how well that's worked out for other countries. This is America. That wouldn't happen here. Really? Do we have to have that argument again? This is America. That wouldn't happen here. FEMA camps. That's America. That wouldn't happen here. Oh, let me rewind back to World War II when we rounded up German people and Japanese people and put them into internment camps. Oh, and Italians too. Certain Italian, people of Italian descent got rounded up. Not all of them, but some of them. Mostly Germans and heavily the Japanese. But no, they wouldn't round anybody up and put them in the prison camps, right? Not American citizens, even though a lot of the Japanese that were rounded up were born here in the United States. But hey, doesn't matter. It was during time of war. It was different back then, Popeye. We would never do that again. We would never freak out and just illogically act and throw people in prison camps for indefinite periods of time. Oh, wait a minute. See my point? I played the audio on Friday from the UK. They said, don't let them take your guns. Do not let them take your guns. And they told them they'd be able to keep fox hunting, and they were going out. And this is a couple years ago, so I haven't even looked into it to see if they actually did ban fox hunting over there. Probably did, but they went after hunting. Same thing they tell you here. Oh, we're not going to go after hunting. Hunting is awesome. That's fine, but there's no reason why you should have access. Civilians should have access to the same weapons that the military does. Yes, there is. There's a specific reason for it. It's called a military coup. See, the citizens having access to the same firearms that the police and the military do ensures that the police and the military could never overthrow the government and just throw away the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. The Second Amendment is what gives all the other ones teeth. See, the First Amendment allows you free speech, and the Second Amendment guarantees that free speech. You get my point? You don't have free speech or anything else without that Second Amendment. I don't want to hear anybody say any different. If you try to debate me on it and tell me, no, you can't hide behind the Second Amendment, no, wrong. It's not hiding behind the Second Amendment. Wait until an axe-wielding maniac breaks into your house and you say to the guy, hey, put that axe down. Hey, you put that axe down. Hey, stop chopping up my daughter. Stop trying to kill my wife over there. You put that axe down, sir. Hey, don't swing that axe at me. Hey, ow. Yeah, tell me how that works out for you. Oh, you'll be dead. That's right. Because axe-wielding maniac doesn't care. He doesn't care about laws. People, use your brains. Don't get played. What happened is horrific. Those innocent kids getting shot is horrific. But don't think that if you take away rifles and if you take away 30-round magazines, that's instantly going to stop all these school shootings. You see how these politicians react to it? They get you to believe they're crap. Well, I think that if you took away these high-capacity magazines, you wouldn't have all these shootings anymore because people would have to reload. You don't think they would just carry multiple magazines? Guess what? Let me explain something to you. Part of the problem is the fact that people are taught to be victims. Yes, you're taught to be a victim nowadays. It's the way it is. Sit in a corner and cower. Well, that's real good when the guy's got a gun. Okay? Real good. So nobody else in the building has a gun except for the dude that's doing the killing. I guess it's real easy, right? Oh, but blame the gun because the gun's what did the killing. If the guy didn't have a gun and no one else in the building was armed and they were all trained to be victims like they are, right? The guy could have walked in with a knife and stabbed the school children and stabbed the people, the adults at the school. In fact, that happens all the time in China. They just had another one. It was either the same day or within hours of it, literally. But I think it happened before. It was either right before or right around the same time the school shooting happened. You had a guy go nuts in China and stabbed 22 kids. 22 school children. He stabbed them. So I guess we should worry about that too and ban knives. And apparently here in Florida, there was a guy that was killed with a hammer. So we should ban hammers too, because I told you the other night, hammers can be used to bash someone's brains in or build a house, right? Well, apparently somebody down here in Florida killed somebody else with a hammer, so we should ban hammers too. I mean, I can go to Home Depot right now and buy a hammer. No background check. Do you think that's a real good idea? Do you think just anybody should be able to go to Home Depot and buy a hammer? I don't. Personally, I'm scared now because, some guy got killed with a hammer. So I'm going to petition Congress and the president to just pass some some hammer control legislation. And by the way, there are people calling for the president to just go above Congress, literally. Like Mike Bloomberg. The president needs to, if Congress won't act, he needs to act. Oh, because that's how dictators work, right, Mike Bloomberg? Well, we have to stop this madness. Guns killed those innocent kids. No, one sick, twisted individual killed those kids. And if it wasn't in a gun-free zone, less people would have died because they would have been able to shoot the son of a bitch before he got into the classroom. At least the principal and the office staff would have had a fighting chance. Again, somebody could have shot him while he was trying to shoot his way through the front of the school. They say he shot a hole in the wall. I got the audio of that coming up from the governor of Connecticut. Because that's what assault weapons can do. You can shoot holes through walls like in the movies. Irresponsible speech. We're going to break. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. It is the Sunday edition, December 16th, 2012. I'm your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. Tonight, I've been going over the craziness that's been going on over the past 2 days with the Connecticut school shooting. There's a lot of misinfo out there. I've been trying to clear that up a bit. And I know a lot of the listeners are probably surprised that I'm not, jumping up and down saying there's evidence that the government did it and this and that and blah, 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 and ties to this and that. There are a lot of questionable things, a lot of shady things. But as I said, hour 1, I'm still on the fence whether or not this was just a random act of insanity by a kid who was hopped up on all sorts of mental medications and psychotropic drugs, which that's a real problem. And the other link, as I said, is video games too. I mean, we live in the youth of today, the youth culture. These kids grew up with Xboxes and PlayStations and all that stuff, and super violent video games and first-person shooters. They didn't have first-person shooters when I was a kid. The very first-person shooter that ever came out in the fashion that it is today was on, I think it was Nintendo 64 or Super Nintendo. It was one of the two. It was called GoldenEye. It's the original first-person shooter. And that came out, when I was a teenager, like late teen years. So around that time is when that genre first came out, but they really didn't become popular until I was in my 20s. I would say like mid-20s. That's when they really picked up steam. By the time I was in the military, that's when this genre of first-person shooter video games came out. And now that's the only thing kids want. They want Call of Duty, they want Halo. And I mean, you could say Halo to a certain extent because you're running around killing aliens and you do shoot your friends and stuff in the game. You can attack each other, but Call of Duty, Battlefield, stuff like that, where you run around in more of a realistic environment than, let's say, Halo, because you're not fighting space aliens, you're fighting other humans, so it's more realistic, right? And you're running around in this more realistic environment than shooting aliens, and you're getting special points and awards for sneaking up and slashing your friend's throat. In Call of Duty, one of the one of the, I forget which one it was Modern Warfare or Special Ops, whatever. One of them, when they first introduced like shanking somebody in the throat as part of the game, you get special rewards for sneaking up on people and taking them out. Even in the older versions, you get rewards for sneaking up and just melee attacking somebody with your knife. So if you can sneak up and stab people to death as opposed to shoot them from far away with a gun, you get more points. And these kids go run around playing video games and they shoot their friends 15, 20 times per match, and their friends like, oh, you dick, you shot me in the face, and they laugh and they joke and they throw things at each other, and they're kids, right? Well, what we don't understand, perhaps maybe we don't want to understand it until you start to research it, is the fact that children's brains are malleable. And at 15, a child can't comprehend the same thing on the same level that a 30-year-old adult could. So a 15-year-old child, even though the kid is 15 and he understands and he's smart, not really going to comprehend that dead is dead. Right? And it's the truth. It's the fact of the matter. Kids don't comprehend that dead is dead. They just don't. Sorry to burst anybody's bubble. My son, my daughter, they're super smart. At 15, a kid can't mentally comprehend they can to a certain extent, but not to the level of someone who's in their 30s. Their brain just isn't mature enough. Okay? So what happens is they play these games, they get this unreal expectation that they can shoot their friends, even though it sounds insane. They get this expectation that they can cap their friends and get away with it because they can just hit the reset button. And I know that sounds insane to somebody who maybe doesn't play video games or isn't exposed to that. But when you're programmed with that, when that is put out to you and fed to you 24/7, okay, via your home entertainment system, and what better of a way to program yourself? If I was going to program somebody, right? If I wanted to, switch on violent tendencies in people, or and all the other things that these video games do, right? If I wanted to program people's brains, what would be an easier way to do it? Have them come to a center where I control all the computers and workstations where they sit, and they would play this simulation, and they're all the same thing, and some of them are shifting in their chairs, or they're uncomfortable, and my ass hurts, or my back hurts, or this or that, and they get up and they're moving around and it's just not comfortable. Or do you think you're going to get good results out of that? Or do you think you get better results if you use the same brainwashing technology and you put it in their living room of their house where they feel comfortable and they feel safe and they think they're just playing a game? What do you think is going to have more effect? Obviously, the second option. Because they're comfortable, they're putting their feet up, they're eating Cheetos, some of them probably smoking pot, right? Drinking, whatever. Anybody that's ever played video games knows you always find at least one or two people, on something in one of the rooms that you're playing in. 15-year-old kids can't comprehend the same way a 30-year-old man or a 30-year-old woman does. So, and this is a new thing for us to sit and ponder because, my generation, again, growing up when I was a kid, the original video games that we were exposed to weren't anywhere near as violent as this stuff. So this is all new. And when you hear people go, oh no, video games, you're crazy, video games don't do anything, you're nutbag, you just want to take away video games. No, I'm someone that actually has played I'm a former gamer. I still play video games once in a while to de-stress, maybe a half hour here or there, but I never have time to. I mean, my Xbox has a layer of dust on it, probably 6 inches thick. I don't use the thing. But as someone who has played video games, I understand they're fun. They sometimes certain games have brain challenges and stuff. But pretty much now, most of the really super popular video games don't entail anything. It's point and shoot your gun. I mean, every puzzle in the game or every solution in the game is your gun and your weapon. There's no use your brain, figure out, logic, and they have those games, but those aren't the super popular ones, or the ones that get the front billing. The ones that get the front billing on television and the internet and on airwaves, radio, whatever, all the commercials are the, Call of Duty 15, Special Ops number 87. All of it. All of it's ultra violent. Our whole society now is violent. Since 9/11, everything is war and military combat gear and guns and killing and, you got to join the army and go over to Afghanistan and kill little Afghan kids. By the way, I don't see the outrage in that. Where's the outrage in all the kids that have died from our bullets from our soldiers? I'm not saying our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and marine are all evil. Bah. You know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about war. How many kids have been blown up by bombs? But that's acceptable. So it's okay to massacre 200 people at a wedding party in a foreign country to kill maybe one bad guy that's there. Because bad guys do celebrate too, right? So it's okay to kill women and children and innocent men too at a wedding or at a funeral, or blow up 11 and 12-year-old kids that are herding goats on a mountain. That's acceptable. But if there's violence perpetrated against our own children here at home, then it's a different story. That's kind of two-faced. Children are precious no matter where they are. They're children. They're innocent. Doesn't matter what country they're from, what nationality, what religion. They're children. There should be equal moral outrage. We're going to break. We'll be right back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen, and I am joined by my good friend and fellow radio show host here on the Orion Talk Radio Network, Mr. Johnny English. Johnny, welcome to today's broadcast.
What's going on, Popeye? Thanks for having me on, and I apologize for being late, but better late than never, I always say.
You got that right. Today I've been going over the shooting in Connecticut, this mass school shooting more than just a school shooting, because there's more than one crime scene. He killed his mother at the house and everything. So plus they found a dead guy in Jersey. There's just a lot of shadiness, weird things going on. So on Friday I went over a lot of the news and my views on it, and I covered some episodes of good that came about from having a gun to try to counter that, oh my God, we have to get rid of guns vibe that was immediately being put out on Friday. But over the weekend, going over this, looking at it, I'm still on the fence myself of whether it was a staged event or whether it was real, because there are a few shady things here and there. Some of it I've even myself cleared up on air today, just due to the fact of the due diligence, just by some of the people out there, some of the researchers out there. One such young lady in particular named Sheila Aliens. She goes by on YouTube, and she did a video about the second shooter, and she did a little background. And the guy that they had arrested in the woods, and I talked about this the first hour, the guy they had arrested in the woods, that they had handcuffed down at the firehouse or whatever down the street. Turns out that he was a parent of one of the kids at the school. So that knocks down the second shooter, the witnesses' stories anyway, because that was the only person that I saw, at least if there could be video that I haven't seen yet, but that was the only video that I saw where they said, where the witnesses said that they saw somebody else in the woods or whatever, was this guy pertaining to this case. So I haven't seen anything else. So that's one piece of information I was able to at least get out there, hopefully try to straighten it up a little bit. But there's a lot of disinfo out there, misinfo. I've been talking about that. And then there's a lot of stuff that does need to be answered, shady things. Like they're saying now on Friday they said he was buzzed in. In fact, I'm gonna play this audio really quick for you, and then I'm gonna play both pieces of audio, and I want to get your take on it. But on Friday they said, and I played this, they said that he was buzzed in. He went to the school, and he was buzzed in because they had just installed in the school, the principal had just installed a system that you'd have to get buzzed in. You couldn't just, you can't just walk in. It's not like when we were kids, you could just walk up and open the door and walk into school. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And they have cameras, so they can obviously see you when you go and ring the buzzer, right? And ring the bell and they want to know who you are. So why would they buzz in some dude with 2 pistols and an AR-15 on his back, or holding the AR-15? And then, of course, I also heard reports that the AR-15 was left in the car and that he only used pistols. And then it came out that, no, he used the rifle, and most of the victims were shot with the rifle and everything else. But before I get too sidetracked, here's the clip first of, this is from Fox News, and this is them reporting that he was buzzed in. And then I'm going to play you what the governor of Connecticut said. Check this out.
Went to the school and was somehow buzzed in the front door. Keep in mind, the school was on lockdown. He was buzzed in the front door with 3 weapons. He first walked into the office and opened fire, going after the principal and the psychologist and others in that office.
Okay, so he had 3 guns on him, and you just heard him say he was buzzed in, right? Now, this is what the governor of Connecticut tells Candy Crowley today.
Buzz-in system. As you look at that as a governor, knowing the times we live in, the sorts of things that happen, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, we've yet to turn up a history of mental health problems in terms of going to a psychiatrist or showing any signs of, I'm going to go do a horrible thing. So, and we've had a couple of these where there's no kind of history to it. So we know that if someone is determined and it's a first-time thing, that these kinds of things can happen. Do you look at schools in Connecticut now and think, we have to do better in security, or we need a security personnel at these schools? I mean, where do the times take us in terms of protecting what we always assumed were sacred ground, which is schools?
Well, what we know is he shot his way into the building. So he penetrated he wasn't buzzed in. He penetrated the building by literally shooting an entrance into the building. That's what an assault weapon can do for you. We are unfortunately a violent society.
That's what an assault weapon can do for you, Johnny. You can shoot your way through a door, which is supposed to, if the door is strong enough to be held by a magnet, one of those magnetic locks. And school doors when I was a kid were pretty friggin' thick. Good luck penetrating that without deforming the round, going through the. Now, I'm not saying you can't shoot a door off or anything like that, but I mean, he shot his way in through the school. Like I said before you came on, if he blew out a window and climbed in through the window, maybe. But they're making it sound like he shot an entranceway into the school, like you would see in a movie. He only had 30-round mags, dude. I mean,
well, the first thing obviously is the contradiction, and most doors like that have most security doors, and it doesn't matter if it's in a school or anywhere else, actually has like a steel pattern. It's like a steel honeycomb pattern inside the glass. You don't really see it unless you look close. So, I mean, just firing around and breaking the glass isn't going to get you in anyway. But I mean, which is it? Which story is it? He either was buzzed in or he blasted his way in. I mean, which one is the correct story? And if you listen to the governor, him hawing around, I mean, it's hard to. I mean, what is the real story here? I mean, do we know what the real story is?
Oh, it's so convoluted, dude. I mean, I don't know. That's why, out of one breath, that's why I played both clips, because here you have reporting, and the officials are telling them that he was buzzed in, and now everybody started questioning why was he buzzed in, and now the story's changed to he shot his way in. And like you said, that glass is safety glass. Good luck. I know a kid that put his fist through a pane of that when we were in high school, and his hand was destroyed. He had to go to the hospital. He almost passed out because of blood loss. I mean, and to this day, the kid's got gnarly scars all over his hand. I mean, it tore his hand apart, and he didn't even get his fist completely through it because of all the wire and all the mesh and everything. So I mean, and those windows are usually small anyway. So I mean, Lord knows, dude. I don't know. It's just like I said, there's a lot of stuff that sounds shady and that needs an explanation, and then there's stuff that makes me go, well, that is okay. And then when you research, you go, well, that is accurate. That did happen. So I'm kind of on the fence as to whether or not it was a staged event. I'm not on the fence of whether or not they're using the aftermath to push an agenda. That's without a doubt. I mean, I don't even need to prove that. You just turn on the news. But whether or not it was staged, I'm just not sure yet.
this desire to get out the first report has killed mainstream media in the past. You look at 9/11, you look at all the stories where, you know, the England or whatever that reporter was that's standing in front, and they were talking about Building 7 had already been pulled and it hadn't even dropped yet. I mean, you look at all the different stories over the past that have happened this way, and I just want to, because the first story I heard was the guy had pistols. He had 2 pistols. He got buzzed in, and he started opening fire on people. I mean, that's the story that I heard initially. And now we've progressed into the guy had an assault weapon, and he blasted his way in, which the way I see it, short of a grenade launcher actually blowing the doors open, I don't understand how you could blast your way. I mean, they are very powerful weapons. Don't get me wrong. I know what one does. I was in the Army. I know what an assault weapon can do. But the way they've already contradicted themselves, it should throw up a huge red flag. However, I am a firm believer in not jumping the gun and start screaming that this was COINTEL and, you know, this is MK Ultra, and, you know, you can't really jump into that anymore because it makes us all look stupid. So I don't know, man. You know, whatever the official story is, we got to know what the official story is. And with this obvious contradiction right now, we really don't know.
Yeah, and there's a lot of contradiction. Johnny and I were so into our conversation, I talked going right out to the break. So in case we got cut off, what I was saying was the reason why I had stepped back from posting things on Federal Jack in tune with this alternative media cycle that I started to realize that I was becoming a part of was the same reason that you see a lot of this different information or misinfo being spread around, because I didn't want to be part of this initial response to jump on a story right away, you know, and get the facts to people, because, you know, the facts that I could have been getting to people could have been wrong. The story could change, and it's about anything. I just noticed as a whole that the alternative media was creating its own news cycle like the mainstream, and I didn't want to be part of that. That's not why I got into this. You know, I'm not trying to, you know, get out there and make sure I get the story out by 7 a.m. every day. Doesn't matter what it is, must get that story out there. You know, I don't want to do that. And I've purposely taken a step back with Federal Jack out of that because I don't want to be part of that. And during the break, we were chatting, and I was telling you, you know, it's very interesting how we're sitting back and we're pointing out that there's inconsistencies. There's so many. And and a lot of it is because of this rush to report, right? Because you have this instant 24-hour access now at the internet and social media, that the local CBS affiliate is even reporting about that and saying that there's different there's lots of different reports, like you were talking about how it was originally. I heard the same report that he originally only had 2 pistols, right? Right. And that the rifle was left in the car, and they found the rifle in the car. Now, I've heard that multiple times. And here, this is a local CBS affiliate in Connecticut, and it says, look, Lanza's weapons, this is one of the inconsistencies. Lanza's weapons were listed as 2 pistols, a Glock and a SIG, as well as a .223 caliber Bushmaster rifle. But whether that rifle was used in the school or left in the trunk of Lanza's car remained unclear. That's a local CBS affiliate reporting that. Now, you have the medical examiner being paraded around TV saying that all the victims were shot with the rifle. But they're saying right here that and this is a reporting on the different some of the disinfo or misinfo, or, you know, quick to report on things, and that you know, misinformation was put out there. This is what they're literally saying. This is in this report. They're listing this as what one of the reports of the weapons are, and that it's still not there. And they say the key thing is the second line there. Whether that rifle was used in the school or left in the trunk of Lanza's car remained unclear. Well, wouldn't it become clear if the coroner was able to report that all of the victims were killed with .223 rounds? Oh,
yeah.
So what's the story? You know?
Exactly. I mean, you know, you kind of tend to lean towards the local story first because they're obviously there on the scene. And they're able to talk to people that are on the scene that maybe are walking away, and they're able to get some kind of comment from these people. Now, whether these people are commenting commenting erroneously, or if they don't even know the whole story or what the case may be. But I tend to believe the local news before I'll believe, because by the time that news gets trickled down into the national news and the world news, it changes. The story changes, and we've seen that in the past. It's obviously happened many, many times. I mean, right now they've already got a petition going. I mean, they've got this petition that already has 25,000 signatures on the White House page, which you need. Everybody knows about these petitions because they filed all these petitions for the secession deal, and they already have that going. So this whole story keeps changing, much like the Colorado shooting, much like any of the other shootings or anything else that's taken place in this country. You go from one story and it gets added to or taken away as it gets down the line. And it really is ridiculous. I mean, it's just that's why nobody trusts the mainstream media anymore.
It's building into a crescendo, I see, because all the reporting and the way people would jump on stuff in the first shooting, the first mass shooting that we've had in the past few years, people didn't they didn't jump on it as fast. They took a couple days. Now they're happening so often that as soon as it happens, and because of the stuff in the past that has happened that have been staged, as soon as one happens, it's just this instant rush to let's blame it. It was done because of this. This is why it was done. Mind control, blah, blah, blah. Even if this was a real event, like I said, it's not staged. The outcome is going to be the same. They're going to use it and push it for tighter gun control legislation, regardless of whether or not they staged it. So, I mean, you have to look at the response and then the incident itself as two separate things. That way, because sometimes that helps you at least decipher whether or not the first part of it, the initial event, was staged or not, because you could break it down, and then because the response is always going to be the same, whether they staged it or whether or not, like Rahm Emanuel said, you never let a good crisis go to waste. So, and there's a few other inconsistencies, by the way, I want to throw out there before I forget. The initial report said that the mother was killed in the classroom with quote unquote her students. Well, come to find out, that's not true. She was shot at home, and then he took her guns. And apparently she was a gun enthusiast, they're saying. And she was worried about economic collapse and all this other stuff, so she bought the guns to protect herself. Because she's divorced from her husband, and she taught her kids how to shoot. So now teaching your kids to how to shoot is going to be considered bad and everything else. Yep. So one of the news anchors was like, "Oh my God, I wonder if she was teaching him how to shoot those people, and she didn't even realize it." The kid snapped. That's a news anchor putting her own retarded, thoughts out there, like, that it's news and that it's fact, and then people run with it. Well, I heard the pretty news lady say it, And the other thing about his mother, by the way, this kid, Lanza, his mother, apparently, first it was reported she was a teacher at the school. Then it was reported that she's not a teacher, she was a substitute teacher. And then it was that she's not a substitute teacher, she was a teacher's aide. And then now, I'll read right from the article here. Doubts rose about whether or not Nancy Lanza, the mother, had any link to Sandy Hook Elementary. At least one parent said she was a substitute teacher, but early Saturday, an official said investigators had been unable to establish any connection with the school. So, early Saturday morning, like 24 hours after this thing, and investigators still haven't been able to establish any connection between her and the school. So that makes the fact that the kid went to the elementary school even stranger. And then it makes the fact that they buzzed him in with weapons even stranger. And of course, according to the governor of Connecticut, he shot his way through. So, I mean,
it's hard not to attack this story. I mean, it really is hard not to attack the everything that's gone on. It's really hard not to jump on it and say, well, now they're trying to do this, and it all works out in their plan because now they can take her completely out of the situation and make it look like she was at fault and that he wasn't actually buzzed in, and now that it helps their story that he blasted in the building with an assault rifle, and it's hard not to jump on that and just run with it. But I mean, you kind of have to take a step back, and that's the downside also to the local media is the fact that they will screw that up, and they will make wrong assumptions and things of that nature. And it's kind of like when, I hate to use 9/11 as another example, but right after it happened, they knew every hijacker. They knew everything about them. They had all this information out within hours. All this information was out. But yet this story here, it's already changed how many times in the span of 48 hours. So, it's, you just scratch your head and it's how you don't know what to believe. I mean, it's really hard to believe.
And another question, most of these schools have cameras. I mean, I don't have kids, but I have friends that have kids. I have nieces and nephews. I pay attention. Most of these schools have cameras now. I mean, they have cameras from the front door all the way till you go to the bathroom. I've even, the schools are spying on kids with their laptops in their homes, accusing them of doing drugs when the kid's eating good and plenty. So it doesn't make sense that there's no video footage of this. Where's the video footage? Oh, the school didn't have cameras. It just had a security system put in. I mean, come on. There's no video footage at all? Nobody, again, going back to the buzzing of the front door, there was no camera on the front door. There's a lot of inconsistencies. This is why I'm on the fence. I mean, and I'm not being honest. I didn't want to come on air today and be like, damn it, it was a mind control operation. They're going to take our guns. I mean, look, they're going to try to use this to take our guns without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, but when people ask me why they would kill kids, I always look at it from the cynical point of view, like if they were going to stage it, and I say, shock value. Two simple words, shock value. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Final segment of tonight's broadcast, but don't go anywhere. It's a Sunday, and you all know that the Sunday lineup here on the Orion Talk Radio Network is utterly phenomenal. So do not go anywhere.
I like to use the word outstanding.
There you go, outstanding. Now you sound like my drill instructor. Outstanding.
I think that's where that comes from, actually.
It's exactly the first thing I thought of when you said that was my flashback to boot camp. Outstanding recruit. Oh, God. Brings back painful memories. But yes, we do, as Johnny said, we do outstanding radio, especially our Sunday lineup. I love it because we have, the whole day. It starts off, the whole day is forward thinkers. You can start your Sunday off, just turn the radio on and leave it on for a 12, 14-hour day. And just all different angles, different aspects from all the great different hosts here on the network. I mean, everybody. I mean, and not just Sunday, all the days are good, but I like our Sunday lineup. Joe and Tim are after me, and then Ken is after them, and then Holland Van de Nieuwenhof now is on the network. He premiered his first show last week, and he does a broadcast on Sunday nights from 11 to 1 Eastern Standard Time. So, I mean, we got a packed, powerful Sunday lineup. So, final segment, Johnny, I'm going to make you come back on again with me another Sunday for a full 2 hours. I know I know you're a busy man, but I'm going to force you to.
Well, I kind of ran myself thin this weekend and kind of promised this, promised that, and some of the stuff I didn't know about. So that's why I would love to come back on with you, Popeye, and do 2 hours. I love doing radio with you. We always not only have a good time, but, like we've talked about before, we have a nice flow, I think, and it's kind of cool to do radio with you, man. I love doing it.
It's a lot easier to get information across when you have good flow with someone that you're co-hosting a show with. And if I bring you on, I don't bring you on as a guest. You're a host here on the network. So if you're coming on for however long you're on, if it's 2 hours or even one segment, as long as you're on, you're co-hosting with me. You're hanging out, and it's easier. It's easier to get across some of this info if the person I'm talking about it with has some semblance of knowledge on the subject, and you do. You're very well versed on a lot of this stuff, and you're learning. Like, I've watched your awakening, so it's interesting, and I like to get your take on things, especially because you're awake, but it's like it's a fresh awakeness. You're not jaded yet too much, so I can still get a fresh opinion from you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still in the painful stage. It's right now I'm kind of blaming you a little bit. Because, it's the painful stage that I'm going through. I'll thank you. Well, I have thanked you, but I'll probably thank you even more once the absolute complete metamorphosis has taken effect. So.
Oh, that'll just continue to happen your whole life. I still learn every day. I find out new and amazing things every day. I don't think it'll ever stop. So that metamorphosis will just keep going until the day you take your last breath. There's a few last things I wanted to cover about this shooting really quick before we run out of time. And ladies and gentlemen, by the way, before I forget, don't forget to listen to Johnny's broadcast Saturday nights, 7 to 9 Eastern Standard Time, Broken Man Radio, right here on Orion Talk Radio. I like your show. You do a good show. I just wanted to throw that plug in there before I forgot, because I know we'll talk right up to the bumper, and I'll forget to mention it. So throwing that out there now. With the shooting, as I said, I'm still on the fence. I don't know. And look, this is me being honest with you. I mean, I'm sure the listeners don't want me to lie to them. You'd rather me be honest, right? If you respect my opinion, then, I'm sure you won't have an issue with me not coming out and saying yet whether or not it is, it's totally mind control, blah, 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 blah. No, I don't know. I mean, there are, like I said, there's a lot of shady stuff. Johnny and I were pointing out just a few of the inconsistencies. There's a lot of them. But a lot of this also stems from, and this is taking a step back and looking at the problem, it's like things are, everything is ramping up to a crescendo, right, in everything. And this is kind of this ramping up, this crescendo, because people are so, now there's a school shooting, the mainstream media, it's a school shooting, and you know how the mainstream media is. If it bleeds, it leads, right? And there's little dead kids, so that's going to be splashed all over the place because that'll get ratings. Remember, these people are about ratings and hits to their websites and, viewership to their cable TV news stations and stuff like that, and subscriptions and stuff like that. They're not out there to deliver the news. They're just using powerful emotional news to fill up time and to make content, basically.
It's entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. And you have that from the mainstream, and then now you have the alternative, whatever you want to call the other half of the media, right? The ones that actually do investigations. And we're so jaded because everything we look into is shady, or, 3/4 of the bad things that happen nowadays you look into, and it's the official story is lies, and you find out that there's evidence to point that it was staged and stuff. So people are right off the bat don't believe any official story. It's almost to the point where the official story, as soon as the news is telling you, well, this happened and this happened, you're right off the bat, you're trying to look and pick it apart and trying to find inconsistencies. You know what I mean? And you have this merging of these two things together, and it created I think it really not. I don't want to say created. Let me rephrase that. It helped lead to the creation of this mess of info that's floating around out there. And it's, there's not, you can't just blame one individual. I think everybody as a whole, and that's just a brief, nutshell description of it. But from, taking a step back and looking at it, it's like, we're jaded. They're doing it for their own reasons. And besides, they're pushing an agenda too, right? So they have to play on the heartstrings and appeal to emotion and everything. So that's another reason why the mainstream media and the governments would push it a certain way. And you merge it all together, and you have this rush to, oh my God, Johnny, oh my God, I got the newest info first. We have to get it out there. Guys, this isn't a contest. You know what?
Well, it is to them. I mean, it really is to them.
Oh, I know. No, you're right. It is. But there's 6 billion people on the planet or something like that? Trust me, you're not going to get your info out to everybody in 3 seconds as soon as you get it up on the YouTube first anyway, or up on your website first, or Twitter or Facebook or wherever. So, as the alternative media, we need to take a step back. And I said this before, we have a responsibility. We challenge the mainstream all the time and call them out, right? Well, we have a responsibility to be better than that, right? What say you?
Yeah, I totally agree. The first thing that comes to mind when I think of the way the mainstream media handles any situation whatsoever, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, is if you remember that old movie, I think it was the original Airplane movie, when you have like 20 reporters rushing for the phones all at once and they actually knock them over.
Oh,
you know,
great
that's
visual. Great visual.
That's what I see when anytime anything like this happens. That's what I see. Except now they're not knocking over phone booths. They're on their PDAs. They're on their cell phones. They're on their tablets, and they're shooting this stuff out right away. So that's what I see. Anytime like anything like this happens, it's hard to believe anything. That's why their ratings suck. The mainstream media, their ratings, CNN ratings have plummeted. All of them, really, all the news networks, their ratings have plummeted because they are not only are they not servicing us the way they should, but they are also actually providing. If this was some sort of MK Ultra event, and this was some sort of deal that was meant to lead to gun control or whatever, they're servicing them. They're allowing that to happen. So they're providing a disservice to us. Meanwhile, they would be servicing the people that are behind all this, if that is the case. I'm not saying, again, please, I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm not going to jump on that bandwagon just yet.
I think it's usually I say within 3 days you can tell, but in this case, even myself, I'm going to need more time. And the part of the reason is because there was so much garbage put out there that I could tell what was garbage and what wasn't, a lot of it myself. But that process itself is time consuming. And then, you have to, if you're going to be a responsible investigator, you should look at everything, even if it sounds crazy and insane, you should look into it. Because, doing the research into this stuff, nothing sounds insane to me anymore. Nothing sounds, out of the order.
Don't believe the first report. Don't believe the first thing you see, period. That's it.
And I always say check local reports, because you find more info out. Like OKC bombing is a perfect example. The local reports were where you see the videos of them talking about removing more than one bomb out of the building. You never saw that on any of the cable news stations. And to this day, they don't talk about that. They only talk about Timothy McVeigh and the info bomb. It's, pay attention to the local stories, to the local news, and again, don't just rush to judgment. Try to sit back and take things in, even if it takes a day or two. What's more important? Well, what's more important at the end of the day, getting factual information out or getting hits to your website?
Yep. Absolutely, man.
It is what it is. All right, we're out of time. Johnny, I'm going to make you come back on.
You don't have to make me, just ask me.
All right, well then, if I think I have a clear schedule next Sunday, so I think we'll just say you'll be on next Sunday.
I'm there.
All right, well there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Next Sunday, we are out of time. Make sure you tune in to Johnny's show. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, for Ken, Tim, Joe, Holland, Van and Neuhoff, and the rest of the Sunday lineup. Don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, since there were a few clips I wanted to play and I did not get a chance to, I decided to record a few minutes of after show here. Not too much, but I'm going to play the 2 clips that I want to play and a little bit of commentary, and then I'll wrap it up. So the first one I'm going to play is a clip from a former NYPD detective being interviewed on Fox News. I wanted to air this, but just didn't have enough time, so here we go. I'm going to play the audio from what this NYPD, or this retired NYPD detective has to say. I think you will find what he has to say quite interesting. I know I did.
But as we take a look at the work that still lies ahead for the investigators, what do they have to do?
Well, I think what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to look for a motive. I mean, that's what we look for. And there is always a motive. There is always a motive. But if they find one, it may be very, very difficult for anybody to even grasp or to understand. What needs to happen now, and what I really oppose the notion of, is that people want to mourn, and I agree with that. I have 5 children myself, but I also want to be able to take action so that this won't happen. Three of my children are going to be going to elementary school on Monday. So we need to take some action. And as a police officer, I can tell you that what needs to be done is these gun-free school zones, that needs to be repealed. We have to have protection there. We have to have the ability for teachers and people on campuses to be able to defend themselves and to protect these young children.
So what you're talking about is to have someone who is armed and trained inside every school around the country in the event of something like this happening?
If I'm not talking about necessarily hiring or having a police state, but I'm talking about allowing teachers and other personnel that work at the school to have the ability to have a weapon. If that principal, and it's a very tragic incident, but if that principal had a weapon, there may have been the chance to save more children, to save her own life. But we need to take this notion of, not taking action now. We really need to take action now. We need to look at this, take action, and do it. Because if you look at the mass murders that we've had, and most of them, and the ones that are on TV all the time, they happen in gun-free zones. And this is something we have to learn, and we have to protect our children. And I want to protect my 3 children that are going to elementary school. So that's very important it should be very important to everybody.
Detective, what would you have teachers and educators arm themselves with? And should they have the kind of ammunition that this young man had that allowed him to kill so many people in 3 minutes?
Sure they should. Sure they should. They should have any ammunition they could want. I mean, the thing here is, the bottom line is, when you talk about ammunition or weapons, the bottom line is they need something, and it could be anything. Any type of firearm to save the children. If you were to give me a magic wand and I could change things, I would give that principal, or I would have that principal or some of the teachers armed. It could have saved more of the students and staff that were killed, and it's very important.
John Beza is a former New York City police detective joining us today with his take on this. Very different from what a lot of people around the country, sir, are thinking. They might listen to your remedy and scratch their heads a little bit, but you certainly come at this from a career in law enforcement, and we appreciate.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, an interesting and different take from a retired NYPD detective saying that the teachers and school administrators should be armed and that schools should not be gun-free zones. And look, again, as I said before, these shootings happen in gun-free zones. They don't happen in the middle of a gun show where everybody is armed or has access to arms. They only happen in places like the Colorado Theater was a gun-free zone, the Sikh Temple was a gun-free zone, Virginia Tech was a gun-free zone, this school was a gun-free zone. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. All right, ladies and gentlemen, second clip is from MSNBC, and they're discussing the mother of the shooter who was killed in her own house by the shooter, and then he went to the school. And they are already doing a character assassination on her, trying to label her, kind of kooky, crazy gun collector. She thought the end of the world was coming. They're trying to label those people bad. That's the reason why the mass shooting happened, was because of a prepper or somebody that was prepping for economic collapse. And it's interesting that they use the term economic collapse multiple times in reporting about the mother since today. They've been discussing a lot using that term economic collapse, and that she was a prepper and this and that. They're trying to frame her, but I just think it's interesting how they use that term economic collapse. They keep saying it over and over again. So now if they're trying to drill into people's minds that if you're getting prepared for any sort of economic collapse, you're going to be a school shooter and you need to be turned into the police. I mean, remember, they're all about preventing this, right? That's the new thing. What can we do to prevent these crimes from happening in the future? You can't stop things like this from happening in the future, unless they're staged by the government, of course. And then if you stop the people staging it, then, yeah, they'll stop. But random acts of violence, you can't stop. So anyway, let me get into the clip here for you. This is MSNBC, and it's a little over 30 seconds, but not only are you going to hear how they try to frame her up as like a crazy prepper, but they also make an interesting note, which shows all of the gun control laws would have been a moot point anyway. You could have, 35, 40 new gun control laws come in super strict, and it wouldn't have stopped them. You want to know why? Because the guns were legally purchased by the mother. She jumped through all the hoops she was supposed to jump through. He went to go to the store a couple days before to buy a gun and was denied. So then he was forced to go home and steal his mother's guns and then shoot her and then go to the school and shoot the place up. So no gun control laws would have stopped him anyway, because the weapons were legally purchased by the mother and he stole them. He tried to buy his own weapons a couple days before and he couldn't. So obviously the background check worked. For some reason the kid was flagged and he didn't get it. So the laws that we have in place already stopped him from purchasing a firearm. He stole it. Now, laws obviously don't stop people from doing illegal things, because the kid went and it's illegal to steal someone's weapon, and he already broke that law and stole it from his mother. And then he goes and he commits murder, which is illegal, but he did it anyway. Murder's already illegal. Been illegal for a very long time. He still did it anyway. So there's proof right there that making something illegal or banning it doesn't stop it. So here we go. Here's this audio.
About Adam's mother, who of course was the first victim in this massacre, and we have a picture of her. This is the first time we have been able to see her. The aunt described her as something of a survivalist. She said she worried about economic collapse and had been stockpiling. Several people had told us previously that she did have a collection of guns, that she knew how to use them, that she enjoyed them, and that also both of her sons knew how to shoot. And we learned that Adam Lanza, 3 days before this terrible tragedy, went to a local store, tried to buy a gun, was denied, and it was his mother's own guns, as we have been reporting, that he used to kill her, those 10 children, and the 6 others at the school. Yes.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Just more proof that a police state and more laws will not work, because all the laws in the world wouldn't have stopped this kid from doing what he did. He tried to buy a gun legally. He was denied, so he had to kill his mother and steal her guns to go commit the atrocities at the school. So, again, don't blame the gun. Blame the insane, sick individual that did it. Also, and again, I've said this before, as have others, we should look into this kid's mental health history and see if he was on any of these psychotropic drugs from Big Pharma. Something that you never hear CNN talk about. And I'm willing to bet that some point in between the reporting on MSNBC, Fox News, or CNN, at one point or another, there was at least 1 or 2 Big Pharma ads running in between these stories. Getting everybody all amped up on fear. Oh my God, are you feeling anxiety because of what happened? Oh my God, are we pushing it in your face? Oh my God, are you feeling fear? Maybe you should go see a doctor and get these meds. These meds are good for you. Yeah, go get them. We promise they don't have any nasty side effects except turning you maybe into a possible psychotic killer. We are literally human guinea pigs with this type of medication. I urge people to do things the natural way. Look into cannabis. Look into different types of natural homeopathic ways of healing. Oils, whatever. Do not try to use those hardcore pharmaceutical psychotropic drugs at all. I would try everything else under the sun first, and I'm willing to bet that most natural things would suffice. Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in and taking the extra few minutes here to listen to me rant and the extra audio that I added. Like I said, I didn't have enough time to play the clips during the broadcast, so I just wanted to add this little after show. Thank you for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen, and I will catch you all again